Hello? Hey, girl.
What's wrong?
Girl, I just went to a major dealership and got ripped off on a luxury car. Ugh.
Well, I just got a great deal on a luxury car at Star Imports in Camp Springs, Maryland. They took their time with me, treated me with respect, and helped me find a perfect car.
Hey, DMV, looking for a unique car buying experience? Tired of high-pressure sales? Good news. At Star Imports, you'll be delighted with our boutique-style car buying experience. We're committed to treating you with the utmost respect, even if you have less than perfect credit. Check out our impressive selection of pre-owned BMWs, Mercedes-Benz, Lexus, Jaguars, and other imports starting at $5,988. For fast online guaranteed credit approvals, go to starimports.com. That's STARRIMPORTS.com. Or call 301-423-8000. Star Imports, home of the boutique-style car buying experience. Located in Camp Springs, Maryland, off exit 7B off the Beltway, next to Red Lobster.
Good evening. It is 8:15 and you have tuned in to In the End We Win with Curtis. Thanks for tuning in again. My name is Curtis Austin and I will be your host for the next hour. I have an awesome show for you guys, kind of staying in the same theme as last week's show with my registered investment advisor. This week we're going to be talking about final expense and wills, trusts, and just preparing and getting your house clean for that inevitable time for whether it's yourself or a family member. So what I'd like to do at this moment is let you guys know that we are still running our coat drive here at the station. Please drop off any new gently used coats at 4711 Auth Place, Camp Springs, Maryland. We will, have this coat drive going on until the 25th. Actually, February, right, 25th of February. I was thinking January 25th. So January 25th and February 25th, we're making drops. So I encourage you all to come by, drop off any gently used coats or brand new coats. We can definitely use them. We're giving them to the homeless. And with that being said, we're going to jump right into our show. I have two individuals with me tonight that I believe will be able to answer your questions if you have any regarding preparing for that inevitable end to our lives, and then just making sure that our parents are taken care of as well. So first and foremost, let me introduce my panelists, my guest, Mr. Anthony A.D. Davis, my man, coach extraordinaire, and Miss Samra Stevens' son, attorney at law. So, welcome, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks for being here. I know Monday nights can be a little difficult, but I appreciate you guys for being here. We're going to talk a little bit about what it is that you guys do. This is an opportunity. The show actually is designed to enlighten, enrich, and empower our viewers, right? So with what we're going to discuss tonight, which is basically what you guys do on an everyday basis, hopefully someone out there will be able to get something that they can use, and then more importantly, they'll call you at the same time. So what's going to happen, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to open the lines throughout the show tonight. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns that you'd like to ask of myself, or I'm going to call him AD, Anthony Davis, or Miss Stevenson, please call in. You can dial in at 240-719-2560. Again, you can call into the show live, 240-719-2560. All righty? So, simplest, the easiest question that I can ask. What is it that you do?
Well, currently I work as a representative consultant with Lincoln Heritage Life Insurance Company. We specialize in final expense life insurance.
Final expense.
And I know before the show, we kind of talked about, well, what's the difference between final expense insurance and versus, I guess, your traditional life insurance. And a lot of times, people have life insurance sometimes through their employer, or they take out, different types of life insurance policies. In those cases, they're looking at something for the future, for their family, for their children, to pay, to leave money for their loved ones, to continue on in the absence of their, income, or to provide a means to continue paying for their, day-to-day living expenses, their mortgage, their rent. and also for children for their college funds and things of that nature.
Right.
Whereas life, with respect to final expense, it's a special need for a special service for a special need, whereby we focus primarily on that final expense piece, and our policy, our program is really geared towards that final expense need. It's not a large sums of money. We can write anywhere up to $20,000, $35,000. So their low end policies doesn't require a lot of underwriting and things of that nature.
Perfect.
There are some health questions, but it's basically set aside specifically for the purpose of burial or funeral expenses and covering those bills and things that may result out of a long-term illness or things of that nature. We also have a separate plan that's part of our program, but we can go into that in a little more detail.
That for a second. Let me get to Ms. Samra Stevenson.
Hi, how are you?
Fantastic. Thanks for coming out.
You're asking what we do. I'm a solo practitioner. I'm an attorney. I practice in the areas of family law and estate planning, wills and trusts. I branded myself your happy family law attorney because we fight for happy families one day at a time. Outside of my family practice focuses on custody litigation, so father's rights and parental alienation issues. But outside of that, I have a separate business it's under the S.A. Stevenson Law Office's umbrella called Wills on Wheels Incorporated. And that's
Wills on Wheels.
Wills on Wheels, and that's mobile estate planning. So
mobile.
Yes. So
that means you're coming
homes.
to me.
I go to people's homes. I
Oh,
go to your home.
amen.
I go to your office. I go to your hospital. Wherever you are, that's where I'm going, because that's where I'm needed. So.
Wow, that's creative.
Thank you.
My interpretation of will preparation, though, is time, because there's so much stuff that we acquire over our lifetime that to prepare a will, an effective will, it takes time. So to do it in the environment, like you mentioned, the wills.
Oh, I don't actually draft it in the home. So it's a 2-visit process. So you have your first visit. The idea is you need to be comfortable in your own home while we're talking about these end-of-life things.
Sure.
Also, a lot of times documents come up. So one of the things I was running into with people is not bringing documents to the office. So they're already in the home.
Oh, okay.
No problem. And so once I get all the information after like a 60 to 90-minute intake, I come back after a few weeks with the documents, and we sign everything at that point. So it's not done. There's some things that are done on the spot, but not the wills.
Sure. Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
No problem.
Now, you guys have kind of partnered up in what it is that you guys do, right? And I know you have an event coming up in February that we're going to talk about. We've got an advertisement that we're going to put on the screen for all of the viewers to see. But how did you guys come to start working together?
Well, I guess I would say it was my brainchild. Just, Summer and I came into contact with one another through some mutual associates. And she, shared with me what it was she did, and at that particular point in time, I was going through a situation, or I should say, my family and I are going through a situation where we have a piece of property that was left by my grandparents to my mother and her 8 siblings.
Wow, 8.
Well, at the present time now, there's only one remaining sibling. I have one aunt that remains out of that 9, and there was no will. The property is titled in all 9 children's names.
Wow.
And so now we're scrambling, trying to work with an attorney up in Ohio to get to a point where the deed is properly titled, so that now we can, because right now we can't do anything with the property. We can't sell it. We can't, do anything really until such time as we get that all taken care of. And so a number of my mother's siblings, including my mother, did not have a will. And so that's kind of how we got to this place. And then in terms of tying it in with what Ms. Stevenson does with what I do with the final expense piece, I just feel like that was like a perfect storm.
Sure. And let me say this. You guys are a lot more formal than I am. So, but anyway, so there were a couple of things that you mentioned there, AD, and Samra, jumping over to you with the scenario that he just mentioned. Do you see a lot of that?
Maybe not that specific fact pattern, but yes, a lot of the failure to plan ahead, and that creating difficulties for people who are surviving those that are passing away.
And does it vary by state, the difficulty in finding resolutions for a situation like that?
It would be difficult for me to say because I'm not barred in every state, although
Right.
wills do transfer from states, or you can practice will drafting in other states than where you're barred. I wouldn't be able to speak to enough states to answer that question.
Right.
Clearing a title is relatively, it's just time consuming more than anything. It sounds like his, it's relatively simple. It could be much more complicated, but it's something you need an attorney to help you with. So.
Gotcha, gotcha. So what could have been done in that scenario, in your family situation?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, obviously, you know, if each party had a will, which they did not have. I think maybe one or two of my uncles had a will. The other complication with that is that a number of them, or some of them, resided in different states.
Sure.
So I do know that the laws vary by state. So we had a couple uncles that lived in Detroit, Michigan. The vast majority of people were in Ohio, but then my mom was resident here in the D.C. area. So that also, you know, obviously lends some more challenges to that situation.
Sure, sure. So, Samra, what exactly does a will do for those of our viewers who aren't completely familiar? Because I know, especially in the African American community, we may not have done the preparation to have a will. What exactly does a will do for a family?
Yeah, sure. And a lot of people think a will doesn't apply to them. I don't have anything. I don't need to draft a will. The will really gives directions to the people that are surviving you on what to do, and it gives directions to the state also on what to do. It preserves some of your finances depending on your situation, but most importantly, it leaves your surviving your heirs with peace of mind. And yes, you're not around, but you should see the chaos that ensues sometimes when people die in
Sure.
past state. Yeah.
Sure. So now, for myself, I'm familiar with wills, and then there are wills and trusts. What can you specify a difference between a will and then a trust or a living trust? Because I'm confused. As a matter of fact, I have a 97-year-old grandmother right now. Fortunately, she has a will in place. But for me in my house, I'm thinking of, you know, a living trust.
If a living trust is appropriate.
Yeah.
Living trusts are appropriate for some, in some situations, in a lot of situations. It's really, it's technically a personal preference, and it also has to do with how you structure your money, sometimes with regards to what Anthony does in terms of insurance policies and that kind of thing. But essentially a will, understanding a will is helpful to understand what probate is first, because everybody talks about probate. Let's avoid probate. Well, why don't you find out why you're avoiding it before you decide you need to avoid it? Probate is the process by which the courts retitle property.
The courts retitle property.
So if you were here and you were still living, and you wanted to retitle your house, you would sign a quitclaim deed, or you would go through some other process to retitle your house. When you're deceased, you're not here to sign on that dotted line. So that's when the court steps in, and the probate process is the process by, there's a lot of more stuff that goes on, but essentially it's the process by which property is retitled into the name of other parties once that person is deceased. With a living trust, some of those retitling complications can be avoided. And so that would be the main purpose of a living trust.
Okay.
I find them to be most helpful for families where there's going to be a surviving spouse and possibly surviving kids. The access to money would be the primary issue at that point. So the probate process takes between 12 and 18 months on average.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The money can be some money can be held up during that process, and if people need access to that, then a living trust might be appropriate, where you've retitled things like the house into the name of the trust, and then it doesn't go through probate. Or you've listed the beneficiary on an insurance policy as the name of the trust, so therefore bypasses anything that has to do with any other complicated things, and it goes and people can access it more quickly. That's the simplified version. I don't want to...
Yeah, get too technical. Sure. And at the end of the show, we're going, or even at the break, we're going to put up the contact information for both Samra and Anthony, so that you guys can reach out to them. But right now, you can definitely call in if you have any questions. 240-719-2560. So when it pertains to a final expense, who is that for? Because you mentioned dollar amounts. Is that generally for someone, excuse the expression, but on the lower end of the income bracket, or is it for just folks who didn't do proper preparation?
I would say probably a combination of both. Our target market audience would be anyone from 50 to 85 years old. Although we can write policies for newborns as well, up until age 85. I'm sorry, but again, more so for that senior group. I'm putting myself in that group as well. But for that senior group who may not have done the planning, who may not have taken out insurance, and now kind of on that other side now looking at being close to the end and saying, hey, I don't have anything in place. If I were to pass away, my loved ones would struggle. And you see that, time and time again, on the news and so forth, where you see people, taking out, and nothing, against GoFundMe or whatever the case may be, passing the hat, but they have a difficult time, securing the funds to actually bury their loved one. And I think that's a very sad situation.
Sure. So you say 50 to 85, but at that point, isn't insurance a lot more expensive to the individual?
Definitely more. It's definitely more expensive. With Lincoln Heritage, our policies are whole life policies, and so that's a whole nother conversation when you talk about the different types of life insurance, and probably more than what we want to get into here. But it is a little bit more expensive. But one of the things we always say is better to have something than to have nothing.
Right.
When you talk about being able to bury, and and now these days, a lot of people are going the route of cremation because, to be cremated is not as expensive as your traditional funeral. Although it is
getting more expensive.
Yeah.
It is.
That's what I'm seeing.
And I think that the trend is moving towards that, people doing the cremation route, now the costs are starting to increase in that
And it's not the actual cremation process, it's that they charge you for the urn afterwards.
Oh, really?
So yeah, it's interesting.
Wow. So tell me about that, because I was watching a show the other day, and I think I heard someone say that the family bought a casket only to put the body in and then cremate. Is that how it happens? I thought they would just throw the body into that.
I think they do put it in a box to cremate.
Really?
It really depends, Curtis, because I've actually, one of the things that I feel like I'm ideal candidate to do this work, because I actually worked in a funeral home before, and I've had, both my parents had family friends that own funeral homes, and so from really from a young age, I've been around or exposed to this business. But more recently, having worked in a funeral home, they're just like they're different choices that you can make with a traditional funeral, there are different choices you can make with respect to cremation. Okay. You can have what's called a direct cremation, where they will take your body, they will put you in a basically a wooden box, a casket, but it's just a wooden box, and you can go directly into the crematory. You can have a situation where you have a casket and the body is presented. You can have a traditional service, and then subsequently then have the the body taken to the crematory at that point. So there are different options along those lines, and so it really depends on what you want with the family preference, what you can afford, because again, there's a price associated with each one of those options.
Sure. Wow, that's a lot.
It is a lot.
So it's I guess that's why it's important to have someone out there like yourself.
I would say definitely, and then one of the things that we provide with each one of our consultations is a final wish book, and what that allows, when I meet with my client and we do the application, we provide them with the final wishes book, and it's really a small paperback book. Not really big, but what that does is while you're alive, and in full, pretty much full use of all your faculties, your mental faculties, what have you, physical abilities and what have you, you can go through and you can really outline from A to Z what you want. Where my wedding band can go to, my brother, or my assets are here, my account numbers are this, my life insurance is this, and it really spells it out. And I like my field manager says, you know, next to your Bible is probably the most important book that you could have in your house.
Okay, it sounds like we have a caller. Good evening, caller.
Yes, hi. I have a question about wills. I have a will that was prepared, notarized some years ago. And of course, since then, things have changed. And what I have done is make my changes on that will. Do I need to have another will? Do I need to have it redone? Or can I submit it or just leave it as it is? And when the time comes to read it and honor those wishes, everything will be all right?
I'm so glad you asked that question. So that's one of my, my advice to my clients is never make changes on your own on a will. Especially if you're writing them in by hand and you have a typeface will. The court is going to honor the typeface before they honor the handwritten print. And you're putting yourself in a situation where people can call your final wishes into question. It's ideal if you get that will redrafted, renotarized, and then have it filed with the Registry of Wills in the county where you live. The other option would be to put it in a fireproof box in your house if that makes you uncomfortable. Never in the safety deposit box. It's too safe there. No one's getting into that box without the will. So you've kind of defeated the purpose at that point. But yes, so writing in changes, while there's always a chance that they might be honored because no one challenges them, you put yourself in a very precarious and risky situation by just simply writing in the changes yourself. You should see an attorney, and if you don't feel comfortable seeing an attorney, you need to draft something completely new because there's no way to show who manipulated the changes themselves.
Okay. Once I have it redone and notarized, do I have to have it on file? Can I just put it in my my locked box at home?
You can put it in a, so no safety deposit boxes. Yes, a fireproof box in the house is what I would recommend. I always say Registry of Wills, and this is why, because you can't really predict who's going to know where to look when. If it's with the Registry of Wills, then it's a matter of record. It's not searchable, so nobody can look at that until you pass away. You should know that it becomes public record at some point. Right now, enough of our county, there are only like 2 or 3 counties that have switched over to MDEC, maybe more than that, with the electronic filing. So nobody can search things online yet. You should be aware that that might happen one day, but again, you'll be gone at the time that it becomes public record. So it is sealed for the time being.
Okay, caller. Just for the sake of time, I appreciate your call, Helen in Landover. So if you would, we've got other callers, I believe, calling in. So if you'll just continue to listen, we'll hopefully answer any additional questions.
Thank you.
And Helen, I encourage you to give us a call, 301-795-2728, if you need some more help.
Oh, okay, will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Wow. So what was that you said?
That was a perfect question. I mean, that was it was perfect. Yeah.
Good. And there was something that we both kind of chimed in on and said, wow, I didn't know that.
When Summer mentioned the lock box versus the safety deposit box.
Yeah, it's too safe, you
Too
mentioned.
safe, yeah.
You mentioned that it's too safe.
It's too safe.
That's interesting.
Yeah, a lot of people think that's where they should put it, but then when you put it in there, you put people in a jam because if there's not copies somewhere else,
they can't get to it.
They're all stuck up.
Wow.
Or worst case scenario, nobody even knows it's in there to begin with, and then you go to clear it. You've already been through probate.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
If I could, real quick, too,
sure.
Curtis, just piggybacking or just really confirming something that Summer talked about, the probate situation. Again, you know, both my parents deceased, and neither of them had wills, and I had to go through that process, and it was very, you know, on top of burying both my parents, you know, being the only child and having to deal with that alone, basically. You know, that it was just a process that you know, and I just wish I had never had to go through that because it was the courts, you know, dictating what you could and couldn't do. I was assigned as the administrator of their estates, but it was definitely a tough process, a lot of paperwork that had to be filed and court appearances and things of that nature. And so you know, I would recommend to anyone, if there's something, you know, there's obviously something you can do, but I would avoid that at all costs.
Yeah, and even if you don't think your estate is big enough to have an attorney go through probate with you, having an attorney help you with an estate plan, that person is still a resource. So even if they don't come in and take the whole case, it's somebody you can call, and somebody that can give you peace of mind. So.
Wow. That's good information. That is powerful. And that's the stuff that I don't believe that a lot of us in our community even concern themselves with, because I hear so frequently, so often. Even close to home, I had a grandmother to pass, and I don't believe that she had a will, or there was no life insurance. So the family had to come together to raise money to bury her. I hear, you know, all too many stories of that. And final expense, and you say up to the age of 85?
85 is the age limit in terms of being able to apply and
without having to go through the drawing of the blood, or?
Well, with our policies, again, because they are smaller dollar amounts than your, than your $100, $200, $300, $500,000 policies, there's not a whole lot of underwriting. So there are no medical exams with our policies. We do have some medical questions that are asked during the application process, but there are no medical examinations, no blood drawn, no urine, or anything of that nature.
So is that a situation where everyone will be approved?
No, there are certain limitations. There are some uninsurable conditions, as they're referred to. Pretty much anyone that, HIV or AIDS, we don't cover them. I understand that there are some insurance companies that do. Then we also have other situations if a person is bedridden or hospitalized or in like a nursing home or something of that nature, hospice care. That we're not able to write them in that type of situation.
Wow.
But otherwise, we do, accept, we do write policies for people with different medical conditions as well, though we're able to do that.
Okay. So I can only imagine that at a later time in life, for instance, 75, 77 years old, and then someone finally getting a final expense policy, the caveat would be the expense, the monthly expense to pay for that, because the person is, like I say, 75 or 77 years old. Right. That can be on $35,000 face amount. That can be pretty expensive, I assume.
Yeah,
monthly.
But I would suggest that at that age you would, if you're talking final expense, the average funeral cost in Maryland, I can tell you, roughly for a traditional burial is about $11,000, and that's on the high end. One of the things to clarify too, a lot of confusion when you talk about a traditional funeral.
Sure.
You have two separate costs that make up that $11,000. You have your cost of the funeral home, the funeral services, the retrieval of the body, the casketing, the dressing, the embalming, and all of those things. And then you also have the cemetery costs, your plot, your opening and your closing,
sure,
your liner, your headstone. And so there are different costs that are associated with that. But, I can say this, I just recently wrote a policy for an 81-year-old male in D.C., no medical issues, and then he took medication maybe for high blood pressure, and we were able to do a $10,000 policy on him for about $140 a month, roughly.
Wow. And that's enough for the family to feel a little comforted in knowing that when he passes, they'll at least have the funds to bury him and give him a nice send-off, if you will.
Absolutely, yes.
Wow.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So this is what we're going to do. We're coming up against our break. Samar, you had given out the name of your agency and a phone number. You mind doing that again? But in the break, we're going to also post that so that the viewers can see it as well.
You can find me a lot of places. You can find me willsonwheels.com. That's willsonwheels.com or saslawoffices.com. I think they're going to post my Instagram. That's a great way to follow me. My office has no walls. It's because I go to people. I believe in just You don't need to come to my office and look at my ego behind my wall for me to do a good job. So my office has no walls, and you can follow my Instagram page to see some of those adventures too.
Got you. And how about yourself, Anthony?
Well, I'm an independent agent, and so I basically work, I consider my car as my office. My phone number is area code 301-575-7809, and my email is coachadinsures, INSURES, @gmail.com.
Great. So that's perfect time. We're going to go to break right now. We're going to post their contact information so you guys can see it. I encourage you all. Thanks, Helen in Landover. That was a great question. I encourage everyone listening in to give us a call. The number again is 240-719-2560, and we will be back in about 3 to 4 minutes. Thank you.
I'm claiming the victory before I even face the fight. Not moved by what I see. I walk by faith and not by sight. All power and authority is given unto me. 'Cause when you're on God's side, oh, we win. Nothing can stop us now. We win.
I'm gonna need to put that other flyer up. All right. So welcome back, guys. Thanks for tuning in to In the End We Win with Curtis. I've got my good friend Anthony A.D. Davis and Samra Stevenson, attorney at law, and we're talking about final expense preparation, wills, estate planning, all of that good stuff. I encourage you all to call in. The phone number is 240-719-2560. We had a great question that was called in earlier. I'm looking for someone else to call in. I'm sure there are questions out there. We've got the answers right here. Just as Samra has mentioned, she's got the wheels on wheels. She's coming to you in her practice where we've got the answers right here for you. We've got the professionals in the house. So please give us a call and answer, ask any questions so we can get them answered for you. And if there's anything you'd like to, throw out, maybe a situation that you're going through right now, we've got them. We've got the professionals available for you. So, getting back to it, give me an idea of how you came up with the idea of doing the wheels on wheels. That's pretty creative.
Thank you. It really essentially was I worked for another practice. I worked for another firm when I was getting trained in wills and estates. And I had to work in their office. So one of the biggest obstacles to actually getting stuff done was getting people to come down to the office. Or like I said earlier, they would forget something. Or get this, they would do the whole process, the documents would be drafted, and they'd go ghost for like 6 to 12 months and never sign anything. So I figure rather than have these things, that's an issue.
Sure.
So I figured rather than have all these excuses people come up with, why don't I just go to them and remove that obstacle altogether? The other thing is I work in family law a lot, right? So that's a very emotional practice area. Mm-hmm. It's always ideal to make sure everybody's comfortable. You'll just get better results that way. You know what I mean? So that's how I got the idea. Wills on Wheels, I think it popped into my head. It probably because it sounds like Meals on Wheels. But when I looked it up to go ahead and secure it with the SDAT, with the State Department, I expected it to be taken, to be honest with you. So when it was there, I was like, no way. And then I went and got the domains, and they weren't taken either. I did have to pay some money for willsonwheels.com, but generally, I was surprised that it wasn't something that other people are already doing. Insurance providers insurance policy, you go to people's homes and stuff, right?
Yes,
yeah,
correct.
So that's pretty common practice, so it should be for attorneys too.
That's awesome.
Great. So looks like we've got another caller. Good afternoon. Good evening. You're on the line with In the End We Win with Curtis.
Good
Hello?
afternoon.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Yvonne. I have a question in reference to the wheels.
Okay. Hi, Yvonne.
Hi. I actually have two questions. One is in reference to if there are any suggestions or things that a couple might want to think about when you have a blended family and you're trying to prepare your will as a blended family. And the other is if you have a business and want to have that included in your will. Just wonder if there's any things that we should think about.
Absolutely. Is this a family business or it's a small business?
Yes, family, small business. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let's deal with the blended family first. Are all the children minors in the family?
All the children are adults.
Oh, they're all adults. Okay.
Yes.
So I think the things you're going to have to think about are, how you're portioning out whatever you're leaving to the surviving children, and making sure that there's communication about, let me back up. Describe the blended family to me a little bit so I have a better idea.
We have 4 boys, 1 girl. Both of us actually have the one child that we believe, the biological child that would be the most responsible.
Okay. Are there any children between the two of you, though?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So that's a little bit less complicated. Usually the stuff I see with the blended families are where people have children between the two of them, and then they have had children from previous relationships. The children from the previous relationships sometimes become an issue because they feel like they've been cheated out of something, and so you see will contests with that kind of thing. Where you have adult children where everything, where you guys don't have any children together, so there's no playing favorites or anything like that. There's not anything off the top of my head I can think of without hearing more specific issues in the family, whether that be like substance abuse issues or something you're concerned about, someone being responsible with what you're leaving them, so you want to put it in a trust for one person but not the other, and that kind of thing. Can you tell me if you have specific concerns about the adult children themselves?
I guess the question was more about, I guess, because we know that we have the 2 kids, but I guess we would still have to have our own individual will, I guess. And then I guess we're thinking, how do we distribute or deal with our other kids, I guess. Was a thought, but it sounds like we probably still would do our individual wills and just kind of set it up that way, because we think of our family as one family. We don't think of us as blended. So when it comes to talking about a will, then it seems like we had to think about it a little differently.
Well, yeah, if you're one solid unit, there's no reason you can't do sweetheart wills. And so sweetheart wills are when you have a couple that has wills that mirror each other, right? So you're going to leave everything to your husband when you pass, right? And then it'll go to somebody else, and he'll do the same for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so that would be a sweetheart will.
Okay.
And there's no reason you can't do that. If you want to deal with the blended family part of it and making sure that there's no distinction between the children, focus on the family description article and make sure you're making it clear that for all purposes of this will, all children, whether they're his or mine, are all ours.
Okay.
And you can make that clear.
Okay, thank you.
As far as the second question about the business, my recommendation to you is come up with a succession plan, and you need to see an attorney to do that. You can't do it by yourself, and please don't do it on LegalZoom. Please talk to an attorney about a succession plan. That's business law. There's other things, there's other crossovers. You need to talk to somebody. Call me, I do that too. So 301-795-2728.
Good plug.
Okay.
Before you hang up, Yvonne, just let us know where you're calling in from, please.
I'm calling from Crewe, Virginia.
Say that again?
Crewe,
Virginia. Okay. Got you. Okay, appreciate it. Hopefully you got your question answered, and then you can jot her number down. We'll post that again so that you'll have all of her contact information. Thanks a lot for calling in.
Thank you, Curtis. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
So, a succession plan.
A succession plan for a business.
For business.
Yeah. So what's going to happen when the business ends? If you have 2 partners and they have their own families, one partner dies, and then that family they have their interest in the business, or they think they do.
Okay.
And so did you come up with a succession plan? Who's going to take it over? If it's not going to be taken over and continued running, is there a wind down process? If there are proceeds, if the business was profitable, where is that money going? How is it being split up? All of that stuff should be dealt with well in advance, and it should be done at the time that you make your operating agreement. So if you have a business and you have a business partner and you don't have a succession plan, now's the time to do that. If you're starting a business, think about succession plan along with that operating agreement.
Gotcha. Okay, so we've talked a lot this evening. What about children? What about kids? How do we protect our kids? Actually, my youngest just turned 21 this past week, and
congratulations.
Thank you. How do we protect? And then we have another one. Please let me not be remiss. And our daughter is 27, living in New York. So, yeah. But she's doing a fantastic job. Super proud of her.
That's great. Yeah, for kids are the best part, right? Well, we do something called kids protection plans. And kids protection plans are basically, again, planning ahead for what happens to your children. And so everybody thinks that, you have the will or you have your trust and you spelled out what you want to do with guardianship and that kind of thing. But people don't think about how real life plays out sometimes. So let's just say you and wife, you had date night. We talked on the phone last night, you were at date night, right? Mm-hmm. Let's say your children were minors and they were at home. Presumably they're with a babysitter. Let's just say, heaven forbid, you and wife didn't make it home. So where are those children going now that you're not coming home? If you don't have anything in place, they're going to Child Protective Services or they're going into the authorities.
But hold on, we've got godparents. They've got godparents.
That's great, but you don't have any legal documentation saying that they're supposed to be with them.
Did y'all get that?
That's not, that's not how it really works. So, and if you want to have something in place, so a kids protection plan would address all of those things. Temporary nomination of guardian. Temporary medical directive. So like what if the kid gets, let's just say it even worked out with godparents and somehow the authorities let that happen. Kid gets sick and has to go to the hospital. Those godparents don't have the authority to act on that child's behalf.
Oh, really?
Medical directive would be something you need. So a kid's protection plan is something we do. So for each minor children in the family, we have a temporary nomination of guardian, medical directive. We have little cards that I encourage my clients to put in their wallets. It has my information on it. It has the names of the guardians, their phone numbers, and all of the important points of contact.
Wow.
So that's something that you can do. It's so simple. It's so simple. So even if you don't come see me to do a will, come see me to do a kids protection plan because you care about your kids. I know you do.
Wow. That's a lot of good information.
I hope I didn't talk too fast sometimes.
No, that's that's good stuff.
Great.
That's good stuff. We need to sit down and talk. Wow. So, and I'm going back and forth between the two of you. So, AD, where does the final expense come in? Well, I guess I had asked that one at one point.
Well, let me help you out. Since we were on the topic of kids, with respect to our final expense policies, we do have child riders available, very inexpensive, low cost. If you're a parent of a child between the ages of birth to 17, if taking a policy out on yourself, you can also include them with a rider. And we have up to 5 units, and each unit is about $5,000 each. And so you can cover them, again, if something were to happen. And again, all you have to do is read look at the news, read the newspaper every day. The Bible says tomorrow is not, promised to anyone, and no one knows the day or the hour.
Sure.
And so death can come to anyone, and so including children. There was a story in the news just the other day where a young lady committed suicide.
Yeah.
That was a horrific story, but that young lady is going to have to be buried. And so we do have coverage that would fit that need as well.
Wow. So let me ask you this: you mentioned that your maximum policy is like $35,000.
Correct.
If I was to take let's say if I was someone who was 20 years old and I was hanging out in the streets, I was a drug dealer, for example. I took a policy out on my own life, $35,000. Okay, but I survived the game. What happens when I pay into that thing to exceed the $35,000 face amount of the policy? So I'm 20 now, and let's say I pay my $100 some odd a month, and then after 20 years, I hadn't given it any thought. It was just coming out of my account, and I've now paid $37,000, but the value of the policy is only $35,000. What happens?
Well, at that point, that policy is considered paid up or paid in full. At that point, you can maintain the policy, or you have the choice of just cashing it out, and you can take
the money.
Right. Correct.
Okay. So if I pay over, well, they'll let me know when I get to that
once
point.
you reach that point, exactly.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Right.
Well, and also too, there is when you receive your policy, there is an outline that actually walks you through, and it gives you the various stages of it, through so many years, and you can see on your policy where it actually, at what year it would be paid.
Paid up.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So, Samra, what else is it? You do estate planning, and that is, what does that entail?
The wills, the trust, the kids' protection plans also. And some people don't understand the difference between the two of these: power of attorney and medical advance directive. So those are what I call ancillary documents, so they're separate from the will. The will deals with what happens to you when you're passed away. What about when you're here but you're incapacitated or otherwise unable to communicate your wishes? Okay. Power of attorney, I think, is what people hear the most probably on the TV and the movies. And probably, I think the common misconception is it does everything. Power of attorney gives your agent, or the person you name as your power of attorney, the agent as your power of attorney, the power to act on your behalf with regards to financial matters, transfer of property matters, those types of things. A medical advance directive and a living will go a long way towards medical decisions. So if you're incapacitated and can't communicate your wishes regarding an elective surgery, medication, or what you want to have happen to you when you're sick or ill, that's where the medical directive comes into play. And it's important to know the difference because it's two different roles.
Are those documents normally housed with the will?
They're not usually housed with the will, but I do a whole, that's my estate plan package. I don't think an estate plan is complete until you've done all of those documents. And so any client that comes to see me gets all of that. You can get me to draft a will for you and not do the other documents, but you'll probably hear about it for about an hour. Why you shouldn't do that. I think that a full estate plan includes all of those items because it's full planning. It's full planning. Why do a half-butt job at planning?
Good word. Thank you.
And I just wanted, there's a question and I guess a statement as well, that with respect to the power of attorney, that ceased to be in effect once that person passes.
Correct. So once the person passes, the ancillary documents, the power of attorney, medical advance directive are moot. They're null and void. They don't really have a purpose at that point. One thing I will say is if you don't go see an attorney, always see an attorney. You're doing something on your own, get it notarized, because in today's day and age with the identity stuff going on, just people honoring contracts, get it notarized.
So that's legal and binding?
If it's notarized, signed by 2 witnesses or notarized. It depends on what state you are. I know that you're in different states, so I don't want to advise on that. You should look up in your state what's required. In Maryland, it should be notarized. So power of attorney should be notarized. Medical advance directive, no. But I notarize them anyway because of what I just stated. Yeah.
But you mentioned that people should come and see an attorney. That can get expensive, though.
It can get expensive. I don't know how to answer that. I try and keep my rates affordable. One thing I do try and do to help people out is pull together packages. And I also have a very forgiving plan. So edits for up to 6 months are no charge. So you don't have to freak out that you're not making the right decision right there. You should feel relaxed about what you're doing. And it's really not a huge, unless you're making extensive changes, then we can have another conversation. And I probably should put that in writing. Minor changes aren't that taxing on me or my practice to do. And if that gets you to where you need to be, then I'm willing to do that.
Now, you also mentioned something earlier about don't go to LegalZoom. Yeah. I thought LegalZoom was legit.
Well, I mean, I guess it depends who you talk to. I mean, the creator of LegalZoom was the guy who did the O.J. Simpson trial, right?
I'm not sure.
The defense attorney. Blanking on his name. Not Johnny Cochran. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but anyway. Is it in your practice, are they considered
legit?
Yeah.
Oh no, I mean, and think about it. I mean, if you want something that's tailored to you, then you can't exactly go to somewhere where everybody else goes and take boilerplate language. That just doesn't make sense. I actually just did a will for somebody yesterday, or did a consult for somebody yesterday. They did theirs on LegalZoom, and they showed me what they did. It would have covered them for giving directions, but it wouldn't have covered them if somebody wanted to challenge that. And they had an issue where someone might challenge because they had a child that they didn't want to leave anything to, and the other 4 were going to get everything.
Oh, wow.
So we had to talk about that.
Wow. I would have never known. I see LegalZoom commercials. Actually, because I think I had used them at one point to form a business for us. And it seemed pretty simple, pretty straightforward, legit. We got the binder and all that stuff. It looked good.
Made you feel good.
Made me feel good. It worked. And it worked for the pockets at the time, too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, sometimes it's worth a little bit extra investment. And if you have to wait till you get it together to do that, that's fine. But, it's worth it to do it right. Maryland's more forgiving with the business stuff. I know we're not talking about business today, but this is a perfect example. In California, they have some kind of tax law. And if you go and form your business using LegalZoom, you might miss that. And probably in the footnote somewhere in the bottom. And people call my friends that are practicing in California, please get us out of this fee. And it's like, probably should have talked to an attorney.
So with what you do, Samra, do you work hand in hand with investment advisors? Because when there are, stocks out there, when there are just so many things that, an individual may have, because when you're compiling a will, and here again, over years, you're just compiling so many things. Where does that meshing of brokers and things like that come into play with what you do?
Sure, I keep a running network of professionals. I think a good attorney, you can't expect any attorney to know everything, but a good attorney can find out for you or find the people who do know. So I keep a running list of professionals that I do work with, insurance advisors, financial planners, whatever my clients do need that I can't, that I don't specialize in. Taxes. I don't do taxes.
You don't do taxes?
I don't do taxes.
Not at all?
I do taxes as they relate to estate planning, but when you're getting into extensive tax laws, not my thing. I went to law school, so I didn't have to do math.
Yeah, you like to read, apparently. Got you. So we're coming down to the end of the show, guys. And is there anything that we've missed tonight that you would like to present to the people who are listening and watching?
Well, again, the one thing that brought Summer and I together is the idea of doing a workshop. And so we do have a workshop that is planned. It's a free workshop. It will be located at the Greenbelt Library in Greenbelt, Maryland, in Prince George's County. And that will be on Sunday, September 11th from 1 p.m. Sunday, February 11th, 2018 from 1 to 3 p.m. Again, at the Greenbelt Library. It is free to all. Space is limited, but you will have us there. The two of us will be available to answer questions, to talk with you one-on-one, if the need is there.
Mm-hmm. Great. So we've got the flyer up for you guys to see exactly what Anthony is referring to. You'll see the Greenbelt Library, 2 Crescent Road, Greenbelt, Maryland, and that is Sunday, February 11th from 1 to 3 p.m. And Samra, how about yourself? Is there anything that you'd like to discuss before we end tonight?
No, I just would say that your family's worth fighting for. So everything we've talked about tonight in terms of protecting your families, protecting your kids, my tagline is always happiness matters. So if and I don't know where I was going with that, but happiness matters. Planning ahead leads to happy families and happier lives.
So with that tagline, happy families, what exactly do you mean by that?
Happy families come in all shapes and sizes and colors and descriptions, but happy families are focused on the person and the interconnection relationship. So that's the kind of stuff lawyers don't talk about a lot, and so I like to talk about that.
Okay. Wonderful. You got that? Cool. Can we put their contact information back up? So we appreciate you all for tuning in tonight. We're going to leave their contact information up on the screen for you to jot down their contact information, their numbers, and all of that good stuff. I encourage you all to call. The bottom line, guys, is we've got to get our houses in order. We've got to start making plans and preparations for our kids, and just being able to leave something and not leaving that burden on your loved ones when you pass. There's so many, and obviously this conversation can go on for hours because we can get into a myriad of scenarios that I'm sure that you guys have seen, but I hear about it a lot, just stuff that goes on, and the family is left devastated because they don't know how they're going to do this, they don't know this. So I encourage you all, who have tuned in, to jot down their information, give them a call. I don't think it costs anything to call, and I don't know about consultation. Now that you can talk to them about. I don't want to overstep my boundaries, but I appreciate you all for tuning in to In the End We Win. Once again, my name is Curtis Austin, and we will be right back here next Monday at 8:15 sharp. I encourage you to tune in again, and we're going to have another dynamite show that I believe you will be able to use at some point in your life. So thank you. Have a good evening, and we will see you next week. Good night, everybody.